conference theme is also 10x, and I truly, truly believe the India consumer consumption story has just begun, right? Um, my first and foremost question is, how are you looking to build a supply, whether, for quick ride, because we have roughly 22 to 30 cars per 1,000 people in India, right? Then we have a massive shortage of supply of fleets, and which goes for actually all of you. How are we looking to solve for this?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah. The question is how to build the supply for the carpooling. I think the good part of this carpooling is the supply already exists. If you look at any corporate or any tech park, there is lots of cars coming every day to their parking, right? And the number which is quoted is like 22 cars per 1,000 Indians, but I think that is an India level average. But we need to take the average at the urban level, urban average. If you look at the urban average, like in Bangalore itself, there is close to 15 lakh cars available, and which can easily provide, if you can utilize them very well, and they can provide transportation for almost 45 lakh people. Okay. So each one, at least 3 occupancy, I take it up. And the bikes, the number of bikes are at least 4 times more than that. So for the carpooling, basically what we are looking at is corporates, tech parks, and all the hubs where the working population is there. And we want those cars which are coming every day to their parking is the supply. And those people who are trying to come there, demand is also there. Got it. So that's how we solve, and supply is not a problem for carpooling, particularly in the urban cities. That's what my opinion.
Great. Vaibhav?
Good afternoon, everyone. From a deliveries point of view, for us, the biggest challenge hits, especially when we hit our peak during the big billion sales, where Amazon, Flipkart start selling stuff multi-X of their average, and which is when we need immense amount of on-demand supply of delivery folks at the last mile. So this is when your shipments arrived at our facility, and now it's waiting to reach your home address. We see some significant challenges, or we used to see some significant challenge in sourcing this on-demand supply of either a vehicle or delivery boys, or field engineers, etc. The way we solved for that is by tapping into the whole gig ecosystem, and sort of one of the undercurrents of shared mobility is being able to tap into on-demand supply of vehicles, people who are willing to go do deliveries for you as an ad hoc, as a gig, which seem to have worked very well for us. Currently, we do more than half our deliveries in the last mile, as we call it, with this gig ecosystem. And we see that growing even further. And we're investing heavily in building that product to keep service levels in check. When you're outsourcing, that's one of the issues you've got. But it's worked very well. It is more economically scalable. It is viable to expand across geographies, even in India and other countries where we are piloting it. But yeah, so gig is how we solved our supply challenge, if you will.
You already snatched my next question to you, and before I go ahead, let me ask you one more. So during Big Billion Days, do you kind of partner with other companies? Or you go on Savaari and book the entire fleet to make deliveries? Like, how does it work? Have you ever done such experiments?
Well, I'm not gonna deny we did do a few pilots, but did not fare very well on the economies of scale model, which is where we decided to go deep into the building our own gig network, building our own gig app, and getting people to sign up, tap in, and offer the services. That's more scalable for us. And what we've realized is we can scale that model much faster and even keep it consistent, not just for the big billion peaks, but even for the rest of the year.
Sure. Gaurav.
Hi. So basically, our focus is intercity, chauffeur-driven cabs for intercity. So as you may realize that it's majority of the market is unorganized. So for us, the challenge is the supply is there. But the challenge is how can you standardize the supply, and especially that the car is driven by a guy who sort of comes from a different society, social status. And the other interesting thing is that this is probably the only service where the customer spends close to 4 to 6 hours with the driver in a close confine of a car. So soft skills, standardization becomes very, very critical. So our bigger challenge is not the supply. I mean, thanks to Ola, Uber, there are a lot of cars in the market. And given the economics that we provide to the driver, there's enough money for him to earn. It's just standardization and ensuring that the customer actually has a great experience, great intercity experience. So that's
Sure.
our bigger challenge.
I have a quick follow on, since you mentioned, and this is one space both Ola and Uber have tried / burnt their hands, what happens, once they start, does it happen that suddenly your fleet starts cutting off? They start, because of heavy incentives, they start moving to Ola or Uber?
So thankfully in intercity they've not done that. And intercity, if you look at it, it's more about travel. It's more about the experience that you get, and that's very, very critical, because as I mentioned, you are spending 4 to 6 hours, and things like what is the language that a driver can speak, what is the configuration of the car, and what is the route familiarity that the driver has. All these things become extremely important. So in fact, what we do, we build algorithms at the back end which do an amazing job in actually finding the best car and driver to match the customer and his trip requirements. And that's very, very critical for this.
Sure. Govind?
I'm going to come from a slightly different, because I think most of our businesses are not B2C, but more B2B. So some of the things my panelists are saying, I don't have those problems, because from a supply chain, right? From a supply point of view, for us it is more of, because traditionally we've been doing deliveries. The good news about it is you can predict it's not like $1 billion sale. We can predict our demand. So once you're able to predict your demand, right, then it comes to the supply. So we have parameters which we can say is, for us it is most about how do I basically optimize, give the best value for my customers, right? So which means that for us the key is quality of service and timeliness of delivery. So how do you basically manage this is, technology is the only thing, because we are a traditional brick and mortar company. We were doing deliveries for a while with people. Now we are into how do I actually make sure that remove the wastage in the system, because, traditionally the only way you're going to make your margins or whatever you're going to do is basically remove. So more not from the supply point of view, but for us the demand is kind of like we know what our demand is. On the supply, we have heavily invested in technology to make sure that how do you bring those the drivers, the truck drivers, and basically where we have, most of them are looking for loads. How do you balance the two? Just one more point to add to what he was mentioning is, one, there are some, of course, there are something which is very specific, meaning unlike a car, right, which is basically a standard thing, when they probably the use of the car is going to be, hey, I don't care about what it is, right? I'm not going to have very rarely you rent a Innova or whatever it is, right? Mostly people are doing for the personal delivery aspects of it. For us, it is very, very simple, meaning there are various kinds of trucks which is there, whether you need a 21-tonner. So we have to optimize on a different set of things rather than just the supply. So we have supply, and we need to make sure that how do we basically have a right mix of supply so that we should be able to solve the demand.
Sure. Let me ask you a quick question. Anand, sitting right here in the next panel, oh, I'm so sorry. He's right here, and the next panel is Euler Motors, which is an EV for deliveries. Vaibhav and Govind, how close are we to see that large companies like you using EVs for delivering? Quick answer, quick, 10 seconds. I have to grill you a lot. I have more questions.
This is not our priority right now.
Sure.
I would beg to differ slightly. I think it is definitely on our roadmap. I wouldn't be able to tell you if it is 18 months or 12 months, but it is definitely something we're investing in. We are looking at potential partners. This is the only scalable way of doing it in the future.
Great.
One of the challenges I've heard is suitable vehicles being available. Vehicles that meet load requirements. Vehicles that are robust, that meet load requirements, and predictably good in terms of reliability. Those are some of the challenges I've heard when I talk to the supply side, or for me, the supply side. Yes, I mean that's being addressed by OEMs, because only now are the traditional automotive OEMs waking up to EV, and everybody has an EV offering, and they're thinking about it. So when you have robust vehicles, like Ashok Leyland is kind of leading the case with a commercially viable bus.
There are other wastages in the supply chain, which we are trying to do. At some point of time, we are constantly investing on technologies. For example, AGVs, right? We are investing in those things, right? So that we have, how do you eliminate the drivers on this or make their stuff efficient? So things like that, right? So there's a lot of things which is there on the efficiency. It's just that it's not in our time, like electric vehicle is not in our
Sure. I have a quick question for the audience. How many of you have ever carpooled? Can you raise your hand? Wow. Fantastic. Thanks to Bangalore. So, K&M, how do you build trust? Essentially, carpooling is something, people aren't really, if it's the same corporate, it's still far easier. But to sit with somebody that you don't know, you have no clues how that person is. How do you build for that trust? How do you solve for that?
So, the trust is the main challenge. Assume that I don't have this card. This tag, if I don't have, I'm a stranger. But the tag gives me the confidence for all of you, right? The same way, the same analogy we had taken. So whenever we show the carpooling options, those are nothing but your neighbors living in the same locality or working in the same tech park. But we tell them clearly, these people are verified and they are working in so-and-so company. So we have found a mechanism where we can automatically verify who is working in which company. And whenever they change, it gets automatically updated. So we clearly tell the profile. We build the profile, and we clearly tell that he's so-and-so. And second part is, we also give them option to choose. It's not that in the carpooling, unlike it is a taxi or any other, we don't assign directly you travel with so-and-so. We give them options. We give them options to choose. And the options have the profiles, which tells that where they are working and how many carpools they completed, what is their rating, and there are so many other details. And I have the ability to, I have the confidence to choose. And the third is through referrals. If someone tells me that the carpooling is working, it is safe, then that spreads. That gives me a lot of confidence. So trust we are addressing through these mechanisms.
And has there been any cases two people met and got married?
Yeah. So I think a lot of friendships are getting created, and there's a lot of network. People are celebrating birthdays in the carpooling, among the carpooling groups. And we also have a story that in Kerala, they met together and they married together. Yeah.
So all the single people, please take a note. You know which app to download.
Yeah. So it's a good that we are helping that way. People are finding jobs through the carpooling. They're spending a lot of time and they're exchanging the requirements, and they're finding jobs, and they're becoming friends. More importantly, they're becoming friends. So you do quick rides, sir? Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah,
fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So it's helping in a great way. All of you should give it. Yeah.
How do you deal with disintermediation?
Disintermediation means, can you elaborate that?
Like instead of quick ride, people just figuring it out themselves.
Offline?
Because you've brought them together.
Yeah. So, that's the thing, is once they become together, once they know each other, they try to do offline through the quick ride to avoid service. But that problem is not big. The reason is, I can try to go with you offline, but that limits my options. If I completed my work at 6:15, and you are at 7 o'clock, I need to wait for you. So what happens is the moment they go offline, but we have seen them coming back to the system to find more flexible options. Like whenever I completed the work, can I get it in immediately? And that comes from a large network. That gives me the more power. So the value of the application is much more than what is the convenience fees we take it. So hence, although people try to go offline, they come back. And people who try to go offline is also percentage is much smaller. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm going to take questions 3 times. So this is not your usual panel where we're going to keep talking, right? If there's any question, please raise your hand, and we're going to start again. I'm going to ask more questions, and then we can do another round of questions. Are there any questions from the audience? Okay. Great. So Vaibhav, I've got one for you. How far are we from a drone ringing the bell at home, hey, here's your parcel from Amazon?
Interesting you asked that. We have a firm belief that drones will be a reality in the near future, even in India. While it may sound strange at the moment, what is reassuring is that the government is also investing heavily in this space, or at least waking up and realizing that this regulation needs to be put in place. While the model needs to be tested, there are a lot of infrastructure challenges, etc., and that will be a deterrence. But again, this is the only way towards the driver. So even if the vehicle is shared, the cost of delivering is fairly high. At which point an autonomous vehicle or a drone, for that matter, becomes very, very relevant. Just to give you a context on the policy side of things, I believe early January this year or February around that time, there was a drones 2.0 document submitted by the government where they came and asked for.
That's a draft.
That's
policy.
a draft.
Yes.
Draft for the policy. They asked people to submit proposals. I think 35, 36 odd companies submitted proposals. 27 got dropped. Remaining 6 are yet to go do a dev test in the staging environment and figure out how the drone structures will work. So that push from the government tells you it is inevitable. And for us also, it is something which helps us scale faster, cover larger, longer territories as well. So a few years down, I wouldn't be surprised.
Sure.
From a TVS supply chain, right? I think in India, we have not yet come there. But I'm saying we have our North America as well as UK, where we are not using it more from delivery, but from warehousing, because we have open warehouses, for example, and where we need to have an inventory stock of what is happening, where it's available. So for all of those purposes, we've already started integrating those. So it is becoming very, very prevalent, right? But we have not used it in, for example, for a delivery of stuff as such. So for us, I think so the technology innovation there is basically more from the point of view of a combination of drone with respect to also cameras which are fit in so that you can actually read barcodes or inventory and make sure that you can actually get those things what is there available.
Fantastic.
Those surveillance use cases what you're referring to, right? So yeah, it's prevalent. It's already happening. Even in India, in lots of large warehouses, there are drones that are scanning what is the current inventory, doing an audit check.
Gaurav, do you think at one point of time, K&M and you would be competing? Is the time soon that Savaari would also start offering that, hey, book a seat in a cab, right, instead of booking the entire cab?
So in fact, what we
Am
were
I
discussing
sitting
was,
with two future competitors?
no, actually, in fact, we were discussing that we'll start collaborating on airport transfers, because that's what we do. And he has enough people searching and not finding any ride to go to the airport.
Folks,
So
that's the magic of NPC, we get you to collaborate and I get to grill people, so it's beautiful. How many of you have had a horrible experience, when you've booked a cab? Please raise your hand. Wow. I mean, yeah, I thought I was expecting more hands, right? So what are some experiences, and this is both for K&M and you, like, especially, since you have long rides, right? Like I'm going from Bangalore to Mysuru, right? Or Delhi to Chandigarh, right? How do you control quality, right? How does my driver do not misbehave? How he has not spoken in the car, right? Tons of issues, of course. Or how is he adamant at stopping at one particular place, right? How do you take control of these measures?
So one thing is that we are very sort of finicky about who joins our inventory. So basically, most of the drivers that we have, they have been in the business doing this for 8-10 years, are married, have a family. And the other thing that we have right since day one, really trusted on, is when he comes to our office and gets the car checked, it would be all clean and all nice, and he'll be in the best of his behavior. But at the end, what matters is what the service perception of the customer is. And that's what we have used since day one to feed us back into what are the actions that we need to take, whether we need to reward him, penalize him, or just throw him out. And in fact, that's the reason that we actually have a very high NPS of 45, which is very, very high, especially given that the driver is spending 4 to 6 hours a day in the car with the driver. In fact, there's a new product that we have launched that is doing around 70%. Where we have taken a little liberty of the pricing, but giving them an amazing experience.
Congratulations.
So that's what we have done, yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. How about you, K&M?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think in the carpooling, the challenge is less because at least we didn't face a horrible experience till now. I think we completed 30 million carpool trips, and the average carpooling experience score is almost around 4.8. That's rated by the users. And the important part is still we so through technology, through communications, and we are trying to solve that. We send a lot of communication on etiquette, carpooling etiquette. So we also understand it's very important to build the culture of the carpooling so that it can continue, the carpooling activity can continue for a long time. So we are we speak about to our users why we need to take the front seat, not the back seat if there is a front seat empty, and why we these are professionals, and why we need to talk to them politely and engage in the conversation, why we should not close the door with a, why we should not bang the door. All these aspects, we start educating the people from the beginning. And we also, based on the feedback, we also show the relevant etiquette whenever they open the application. So we are doing a lot of work on that to do that. The good part is, like, you are traveling with the professionals, they come with certain, you got it, no? They honor the commitments, so there are no cancellations, and they're already going means the rides happen, so cancellations are less. And the cars are much, much cleaner than anything else. The private cars are at least 20 times more hygienic than the taxis. So that's a good part.
On that note, let me ask you two questions. One, you said since most people using are professionals, right? So is the market size that small? Are we talking only working professionals using this?
So the market size, what we are looking is, it's not small, it is quite big. In Bangalore alone, I think we are doing 60,000 carpools per day. You know that it's not even penetrate to 8 to 10% of the people. So in Bangalore alone, we can do 6 lakhs carpool easily. You got it, that's the potential. And all over India, which we are aiming at least 10 million carpools per day. And the impact is quite big. On carpooling, maybe you see the size of revenue, it may be small, but at the same time, the impact of the carpooling, 10 million carpools per day happening in India, the impact is quite big. And if 10 million carpools happens, we can remove 30,000 ton carbon emission every day from in India.
That's fantastic, but like you yourself just said, right? The ticket size is small, so how do you make big money?
Yeah. So the ticket size is small. So it's not for a business to sustain. I think the most important thing is the positive take rate. For every transaction we do, what is the take rate we have? So the good part of the carpooling business is we have a positive take rate. And as we do more transactions, the positive take rate is keep growing. It's not like more transaction is more burn. It's not like that. The carpooling is has a positive take rate. So we are trying to grow this business by volume. We want to reach out to more and more people, serve more people. Hence, there will be good revenue flow. And the size which I am talking, like 10 million carpools, at that point of time, we will be at least 2,500 crore revenue making. I mean, our part of the 2,500 crores revenue making.
Sure.
Yeah.
Vaibhav, I have a question for you. Since you said there's a large part of gig workers essentially making the last mile, do you guys use other shared mobility companies like Fogo, Bounce, and others coming up?
Not at the moment, no. In fact, the gig economy, the way we've built it is the FE or the field engineer who comes on board tends to bring his or her own vehicle. In fact, you would start seeing a lot of last miles happening on bicycles. And then if an FE is advanced enough to have a EV of his own or a shared EV available, that is now in Delhi, Gurgaon, they're available, they are welcome to use that, tap into this market and start. Few people have tried. We've seen these newcomers to the city, if you will, who've been taught that they can rent a vehicle, pay X, and then use that vehicle to do deliveries for us. And they're trying that market and seeing if it works for them. But yeah, so we haven't tapped into any specific ride sharing.
Govind, how about you?
No, actually, we are also, because of the fact that the B2B, right, I'm saying there is a specific delivery time. And till now, there is no question of performance-based supply chain, which is not there, right? So I think we are all, in a sense, we can be here and there with the delivery. But I'm saying because of that, right? So the way we manage is more from a point of view of having a mix of, market vehicles as well as your own contracted vehicles, whether it's there, so that is the only way you can actually maintain your quality of service, because that is important in the B2B more than this, because the person who's making the judgment of the time is not the actual person who's traveling.
Sure.
Right? So that's a small difference. So.
And Gaurav, help me understand. I can go on Savaari, book a one side, Bangalore to Mysuru, right? Which is a fairly very busy route, I understand. But let's say I go to some place which is not a busy route and I booked a one way. How do you solve? Like, do you pay for the other side? How does that work?
So that's a good question. Just to clarify that we focus on the round trips more than the one ways. One ways also we provide in 200 plus routes across India. So currently, the way it's happening is not the ideal way that we would like, where we are sort of guaranteeing a trip back. So as you said, in, for example, a route like Bangalore-Mysore, there's a good chance that we are able to pack the ride for the driver. But in a non-sort of a busy route, it's actually left to the driver to hunt, which is what brings in sort of an unreliability that we want to sort of attack that. But any solution that we have figured out so far have been fairly cost-intensive. And that's where we are trying to figure out if there's a smarter, better way. Maybe collaborating with Quick Ride would be one of the ways.
With Quick Ride or maybe with Delhivery, bringing a package back.
Absolutely, the car full with packets.
Full of packets. Okay, that's interesting. KNM, probably one last question before I open for questions from audience is, all it takes, and especially at a younger stage of a company, right? All it takes is one bad experience, for suddenly government to say that, hey, we're gonna ban this company, right? And I hope no government official sitting here, but Karnataka especially has been very notorious in, I think they specialize in banning startups, solving real problems. While Ola and Uber have insanely deep pockets, and they've, gone on a philosophy of doing first and asking forgiveness later, how do you solve for it at this point of time?
I think the only way is the communication. We are keeping constant communication with all the state and central governments. We have met the state government, we met the Ministry of Road Transport, we met Niti Aayog, we met Ministry of Environment. We are trying to give them the data that carpooling, how big it is impacting, how much impact it's making, how many people are using, and we are keeping them up to date. And they also have been quite encouraging, and they are encouraging the initiative. They're coming to our events, and they are encouraging the people to do the carpooling. And the good part is, one more important part is, through constant engagement, we also brought out some policy guidelines, and which are also coming up. It is, the draft is almost ready, I think. So going forward, I'm sure that government will take it much more seriously, because the impact is quite big in carpooling, and it's a necessity today. Like the kind of traffic congestions we are facing, and
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you in between.
Yeah.
Like all yes.
Yeah.
But still we know how government behaves, right? It takes one bad incident, right? Like what is it? Like everybody would say that, hey, this is fantastic. We're cutting on congestion, carbon emission, everything. I completely agree.
Yeah.
But we've seen this in the past, right? There've been very unfortunate incidents happen, right? But those were companies sitting with billions of dollars, and they could probably get the best of lawyers. Not one, but maybe 20 firms work for them, right? So it's a very different ball game at that size, versus for a younger company at the moment, right?
I think for the Quick Ride, our users are our advocates. You got it. So I think users will tell that what is required to be done. Many of the users are driving they're pulling their organizations to do the carpool campaigns. They are asking that, why don't we do the carpooling campaign in our company? Similarly, people are writing to the lot of government also, saying that carpooling is good and you should encourage more, you should give the separate lanes, and there are a lot of things happening. So I believe we are investing on users, and we are also maintaining the dialogue with the government, state and central government, and we are mitigating that. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
one last one more for you. I said it in the beginning. He's the man on spot today. So how difficult is it for you to go and convince a corporate to adapt slash promote quick ride or carpooling overall, just to do a shameless pitch? We at Times Internet have brought quick ride inside our campus. We're very proud, and I'm hoping to be a very small part in the decacorn company this company is going to be. But how difficult is it when you go to somebody and
Yeah.
help make them a champion for you?
Yeah, that's a little challenge, but we are fortunate to have some good companies like you. Times Internet, we've done it in Noida and other places also, the carpooling campaign. And there are good, there's a certain good number of companies that are coming forward and agreeing to do the carpooling company. The adopting and promoting carpooling is not the challenge. That we figured out a mechanism. Any company, give any company, I can build the carpooling culture there. That I can tell, because we worked on it, what communications will work, how do we communicate, where all to communicate, as a cafeteria or parking lot or entrance exit. We figured out that. But the convincing the admin team to do the carpooling campaign tomorrow is a little bit challenge. It takes time. So we try to take our users' help, users proactively do, and sometimes we also take their help to go and talk to the admin. And that's working out. And hopefully more and more. And some companies also, because some companies from the success story of the companies like Wipro, Capgemini, other companies are coming forward now. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I have a quick suggestion for him. You may want to add Tinder for carpool and see your growth. Just suggesting.
From Savaari to Shadi.com, yeah? So, Gaurav, one more for you. The data says about 10% of all outstation cab bookings happen online, right? How do we see this becoming 40, 50%? How far are we? What are you going to do about this?
So there are a couple of things that you have to look at. One, the ticket size is fairly large for a travel business. We see an average ticket size of $7,500, and generally the behavioral aspect is that I want to talk to someone. So that's one thing. One thing that can really expedite this behavioral shift would be the fact that there's no one company which has built an intercity brand in India that people can go and directly trust. So, and we see it even in our conversions, guys who come directly to us are actually booking 2.5 times more than the guys who are actually searching on Google and then coming. So the thing is to build the brand, and of course, building the brand is two ways. One is that you go out and shout out loud as much as possible, and of course raise a lot of money for that. And the second is that you provide such an amazing experience that there's a word of mouth, and people tell more people, and that's the route that we have taken. So that's how we think we can move it.
Vaibhav, how difficult is it to meet SLAs, especially, considering that, there are more players in your supply chain, and this is for both of you,
Very, very difficult. I'm not going to deny. And bulk of our B2B business runs on SLAs, even the B2C side does. It's very difficult to follow through on the SLAs given the nuances in the network, given the outliers that you can't influence at all. A traffic condition on a highway from Delhi to Bombay can suddenly impact your SLAs of your large fleet trucks, leading to missed SLAs, late deliveries, etc. But that's something we build for, we cope for, we do reruns, we plan for. It's part of the business, I guess.
Govind.
I think he mentioned it all. I think this is one of the biggest challenges which we face, right? I think the way we do it is how do we, not on avoidance, but I'm saying managing the expectations of the customer, saying that, hey, look, this is what is causing this particular thing, and how do we basically have more efficient tracking of the vehicles, and making sure that when things happen, how do you proactively communicate to them and make sure that they are, how do we basically avoid this?
Guys, are there any entrepreneurs or company? Oh, yeah. Can we have questions, please? Sir, just after him. Yeah, please. Please go for it.
Should I?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So my question is on the automotive supply chain. Automotive supply chain is extremely complex, every vehicle has thousands of parts coming from multiple suppliers and OEMs. And there is a lot of discussion around tech-enabled visibility of the supply chain, real-time visibility, so that you can track your materials, optimize your inventory, do proactive risk management. So how TVS is solving this problem by using technology, because automotive industry is also fraught by maximum number of recalls after food products. So that's a growing pain for automotive industry. So how technology is enabling this visibility in automotive sector?
So, couple of things, right? See, one of the things is we have been in this automotive industry for a real long time, right? So what we have is we have a set of infrastructure which is already available for us, meaning that we have our hubs and spokes model, right? So there are various suppliers, and so we have, for example, Sanand, we have a hub and, all 4 parts of it, right? Uluberia on one side, and then Hosur on one side, and Chennai. So what we have is we have our hubs, which is basically warehouses, which are specifically, we have done it, right? So then we have what is called as there are suppliers around those hubs, which we do. So how do you solve this technologically is basically the fact that, see, there are 3 aspects of the supply chain which is there, right? One is basically your transportation part of it, then your warehousing part of it, and then basically your last mile delivery part of it. What we have done is in the technology space, right? In the traditional models, right? I think if you take DHL or Siva Logistics, what they did is they tried to actually do everything with, tried to make sure technology is the driver behind this, right? So for me, it is like what we have done, right? Partly because of the fact that we are more into later use of technology, which means that, more services-based integration, microservices-based integration. So we have actually built a platform. So what we have built is basically something called Tulip, which is basically TVS Universal Logistics Intelligence Platform, because I come from a background of technology. What we do is we are able to easily plug in. On one side, you have your enterprise systems where you can eliminate wastage, which means that from a customer SAP, for example, or production, we basically know the parts which are basically coming there. What we have done is we exactly know from our inventory optimization models and everything else, if you take TVS Motor, right? Our concept is very simple, right? We've been in this supply chain for every part, right? So we have that is the amount of configuration. So are we there yet? No, but we are building systems, meaning how do I basically make sure that I will reduce the time, right? Wastage in the system. So our whole idea or technology is based on how do I eliminate wastage in the system? Whether it's warehousing, where do I actually optimally store this so that I can actually give it to you in this particular time? So all we have done is we have taken these 3 big things, technology, put it all into a platform, which can on one side integrate with your customer ERP system, because if, for example, TVS Motor Ashok Leyland is a customer for us, TVS Motor Company is a customer for it. So for example, if they are launching a model Jupiter and what parts are there, we know exactly, we can give them the detail of how long it takes for you to actually get these parts and basically there. So we will be able to store that, and then we know who are all the suppliers which are there. They are all integrated. So on one side, you have your customer orders coming along. We should be quickly able to plan all of these things so that we should be able to do this.
Now I know who to ask what stock to buy. Yeah. So.
Did that answer your question in the sense? So we have a technology platform which is basically microservices based, which integrates on one side with the customer systems, ERP systems on the other side. We have our own systems which we integrate, and then we have everything else all sitting on a single platform where we can actually, different applications can be plugged in.
Great.
Yeah,
and of course, you can continue it offline. Yeah, please.
This is regarding Quick Ride. I see the potential the customers are also those who are of the BMTC, the Volvo customers, same price range, similar requirements and all that, who wants comfort, not the ordinary service, not the cab. And so where do you see this competition? Sometimes people say that, you're taking away people from the Volvo and actually causing a problem for the, the BMTC Volvo. They are going to ban it altogether, is what they say. So where do you see that? Where do you work with them or improve the overall transportation into the public transportation, and not getting into at the same time contributing to the last mile connectivity, because end-to-end last mile connectivity is Quick Ride's strength.
Yeah, I think your question also covers the solution. I think we have been working with Bangalore Metro to take carpooling as the first and last mile connectivity solution. And we have done many campaigns at metro station as well. And we say that it's a pull to metro and pull from metro. Got it, is our slogan. And the carpooling is an excellent way to keep the, why the people choose metro is, one is, it is a certain, it is eco-friendly, at the same time, the economical also. It's quite economical also. It's not enough if it is only metro commute is the economical part. You got it. Even the first mile and last mile commute also need to be economical to keep that end-to-end travel is at economical price. So for that, carpool works in the best way. So we have been, in Bangalore alone, we can see that at least 3,000 people every day are carpooling to metro or carpooling from metro, and we will strengthen that part more and more. Yeah, and so we will complement the public transport services. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Let's
Go
take
for it,
this
go for it.
question. Okay, I have two questions. One is for Gaurav. Okay, can you give me some strategies on, so you have two huge monsters in your space, right? You have Ola and Uber. What are the strategies that you are doing to take on these guys? And the second question is for Vaibhav, and I think this might be a bit controversial because you have the founder of Snapdeal go on Twitter and say he's not happy with his e-commerce delivery, guys. I will give you 10 million orders on day one if you can give me. I just want to understand what his grudge is with e-commerce delivery.
So it's a very, very, very valid question. So as far as, so there are two aspects to look at it. When they are big, very, very big guys, of course, from consumer perspective, yes. And we specialize in intercity, which requires different strategy, different experience for the reason that it's a much longer ride than what Ola Uber does. So their genetics is actually more on on-demand and point-to-point, right? Our genetics is more on the travel side, where a driver and a car is chosen for the customer. And that's what we specialize. And what that results in is a great customer experience. It's a much different customer experience. So now, of course, if you have two monsters in the room, how do you actually sort of come out of it is that never lose the sight of the customer. If you're delivering great experience and be the best at it, and let the customer money is the best money that you can ever get. And customer money is one thing that will not go away. I mean, of course, we are seeing how Uber has done. So you can raise a lot of money, you can raise a lot and generate a lot of market and volumes and revenue and growth. But at the end, is the customer money that will actually sustain a business. So our learning has been that, focus on the customer, deliver them a great experience, and they'll give you enough money to actually have a sustainable business.
Maybe a little bit more, maybe one of the strategies specific strategies.
So one of the things that we had done was, while we never actually sort of competed on the point-to-point rides with them, and if you sort of remember, Ola was also doing these rentals and intercity, and they were not in point-to-point rides. Then Uber happened, and then they got into point-to-point rides. There was a brief period that they moved out of the rentals business altogether, and they were just doing point-to-point rides. So one of the things that right after, so in 2015, we went to raise our third round. And given that, of course, two monsters were there, from a VC perspective, this market has been written off for a cab ride company. So one of the things that we had figured out was that we were very excited about intercity. And intercity till this day is a here and now market worth $6 billion and 90% unorganized. So that's where we shifted. This was the one broad strategy shift that we did, was that it was close to 50% of our business. Now it's 90% of our business that will completely focus on intercity. And that's where we saw a lot of gap. And that's what one of the strategy decisions that we did, which have really worked well, is the fact that we moved and focused on a market which we know that these two will never be able to sort of get in and deliver a great experience. And this is what they have also realized. He had a second question.
Yeah, that was for Vaibhav.
Let me try and answer that. I would have preferred to answer it while our investor was out of the room, but let me try this. So to be honest, I don't think I can answer on behalf of someone else as to what they were feeling when they wrote the message, etc. What I can assure you is, as a matter of fact, I was at Snapdeal's office yesterday. They're fairly happy with the service. Every client, every customer relationship goes through those scenarios where everyone wants better. We're working with them. They've got other players that they work with. We do a lot of deliveries for them, so I'm not sure what's the context of this, but Yeah, so I don't see an issue there. It could be a one-off. It could be them wanting to build their own network. Not sure.
It's just how I love Swiggy. I mean, it shows from my health, but it's also, one delivery they screw, and I'm patting them on Twitter that what the hell is this company? So it's one of those probably. Unfortunately, time's up. Go for it, quick. Oh, excellent. Yeah, but that depends on customer adoption for K&M.
Electric vehicle. So carpooling is same. It works in electric vehicle also same way. So no, we don't add any asset to the road.
I
the good
think
part of us
the
is we
question
don't add any vehicle to the road. Yeah.
in both depends on the fleet, right? One is a public fleet, so it depends how quickly people adopt to EVs, right?
Yeah.
And on the fleet, I think you should stick around for the next panel because that's what it's going to be about,
Yeah.
I'll just answer in sort of a quick answer. The range is a concern. So actually, for intercity is like a 300-kilometer minimum ride. So it's not even in consideration. And of course, the pricing matches, the range happens. And of course, then is when we will jump into it. But so far, no plans. Yeah.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.